This is St. Louis on the Air from St. Louis Public Radio. I'm Elaine Cha. Back in October 2023, we talked on this show about crisis-level demands for housing, food, and veterinary care for dogs and cats at animal shelters in the St. Louis area. The word unprecedented came up multiple times during that conversation 2 years ago. Today, we are returning to that subject because the St. Louis region's animal shelters are still struggling to keep up with demand for their services. And folks have been sharing how they're seeing that play out. Nikki, who works at the Center for Animal Rescue and Enrichment of St. Louis, otherwise known as CARE-STL, says we are drowning and we need help. We are overworked, underpaid, and suffering. Elizabeth, who volunteers with CARE-STL, says it's heartbreaking. The shelter has been severely overcrowded. The animals there are incredibly stressed, and their quality of life is poor. Most of the dogs at CARE spend at least 23 and a half hours a day in their kennel or pop-up crate. Shelters really need our community to help come through for them. More people need to foster, adopt, volunteer, or shelters will be forced to start euthanizing more animals. The current state of shelters isn't sustainable. Many others have written in to say that despite our animal shelters being overfull and understaffed, staff and volunteers are doing their best in a bad situation. Tracy says shelters are doing the best they can with record levels of intakes, surrenders, abuse and abandonment, not enough resources, shelters too small, while leaders do nothing to stop or slow the flow, no consequences. Buddy adds, the biggest critics are often the least involved. We can all evolve and improve, and these helpless creatures need everyone to help. As we discuss the crisis-level challenges St. Louis area animal shelters are facing and potential solutions in the immediate and long term, we invite you to join our conversation. Do you have a question or comment about the state of animal rescue in our region? Give us a call at 314-382-8255. That's 314-382-TALK. Or email us at talk@stlpr.org. Today, we're joined by three guests who are working the front lines of this animal shelter crisis. First, we have Elisa Bauer, who is Development and Marketing Manager at the Center for Animal Rescue and Enrichment of St. Louis, CARE-STL. Elisa, welcome.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
We also have Alicia Vianello. She's the Executive Director of Gateway Pet Guardians in East St. Louis. Alicia, it's good to have you back.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here again.
And we have Malik Johnson. He's the Division Director for St. Louis County Animal Care and Control. Malik, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So I want to start with how things are going at each of the facilities that you are working at. And Alicia, since you were here a couple years ago, let's start with you.
Yeah, I was thinking about when we used unprecedented levels before. I think that's almost the new normal now. Shelters are consistently full. We are consistently full. We generally do have a wait list for pets coming in. So what we're really focusing on is being innovative to some solutions. Now when people find pets or need to surrender, we've started a finder to foster program. We've started an owner to foster program. And we've really even ramped up more all of our offerings to the community to help people keep their pets so they don't have to come to the shelter.
Mm-hmm. Malik, how much of what Alicia has described is familiar in the circumstances that you are facing?
Yeah, definitely. As you may have seen in the media, that St. Louis County Animal Care and Control has, had some faults in the past, and we have been improving greatly over the past few months. What Alicia said, the Finder to Foster program, that's something we've also implemented at St. Louis County Animal Care and Control to get animals back into the homes, because it's better for the animal to be in the home than to be in the shelter.
Mm-hmm. What is Finder to Foster?
So that's when someone finds a pet and they bring it in and they say, hey, will you take this in? We'll say, we don't have room, but could you foster? So we provide food, if it's a cat litter, any supplies that they need. We'll do the medical care, we'll spare or neuter them, we'll help them get adopted. That finder is just holding on to them until we have space for the pet.
Okay, I see. With CARE-STL, what is the situation that you all are facing, and how much of it aligns with what we've heard from Malik and Alicia?
Yeah, it's definitely the same across the board for CARE-STL. We're consistently over capacity, so we're trying innovative new things as well. We're implementing programs like Pets for Life. We have a return to home program. We also have the Finder to Foster. We try to help pets get back home before they come into the shelter. So we have ways to help community members who have found a pet, help them find the pet's home before they have to bring them to the shelter.
Mm-hmm. As we're talking, I think having some picture of what it means to be in crisis is helpful for those who are listening, and perhaps for those listening who have never been into a shelter at all, to see what normal operations would be like. Elisa, how are things looking at CARE-STL?
Right. So we're a shelter that has the capacity to house about 61 dogs comfortably. We are consistently over 100. As of this morning, we were at 109, which means that we not only have dogs living in kennels, we have dogs living in pop-up crates. And that is no way for a dog to live. We just don't have the space.
Mm-hmm.
So,
what does a pop-up crate look like? What are the dimensions?
Sure. Most are about 48 inches, I would say, for an extra large. It's a crate that you would have in your home where your dog would sleep temporarily, not live in permanently. Mm-hmm. So it's a metal wire crate. It has a door. That's about it.
And for sleep, dogs do not sleep standing up. So we're talking about only room for the dog to be lying down.
So our crates do have enough room for an animal to stand up and turn around and lay down. Mm-hmm. But they wouldn't be able to stand up to their full height, like on their hind legs, like they would be in a kennel.
Mm-hmm. What about staff? Because these shelters would merely be empty buildings with animals in them if they were not staffed by human beings. What does staffing look like during a time of crisis like the one that we're discussing, Malik?
It goes to staff and volunteers, right? Our volunteers are the backbone of any shelter, especially in St. Louis County. We have around, 15 kennel staff as of right now who provides the care for the animals, cleans up after the animals, takes them out. And we could always use more. Given our capacity as of today, we're at 180 animals, and our capacity for care is only 80 animals in the entire building.
Mm-hmm. Alicia, how about things over at Gateway?
So something we're seeing a lot is a lot of strays on the street. And so what crisis looks like for us is we're only sometimes able to pick up, we say stray, injured, pregnant, really young. And so sometimes we're having to leave healthy strays on the street, but then often that means they get shot. We see a lot of hit by car. We probably see a hit by car pet every single week. So that's where we see a lot of crisis there. We also see a lot of crisis with people. So like with our vet clinic, we open it at 8 a.m. and people get lined up before. It's a walk-in clinic. It is generally booked by 7:30. That's also a crisis of people trying to get their pets in for care in a timely manner when we only have so much space at our veterinary clinic.
With that much demand and already being at and over capacity, how do you talk with people the animals that they've brought in, whether they're a finder or someone who needs to find some solution because they're facing some personal issues? How do you tell them no, Elisa?
Well, we don't like to tell people no. We like to try to provide solutions. So we do, like I mentioned before, we do have programs like Pets for Life. So if someone's coming in and they're struggling and they're unable to provide for their animal, we will do whatever we can to help them stay with their animal. We will provide food, a list of housing, affordable housing if needed. We'll provide veterinary services. Anything that they're struggling with, we try to find a solution for so that they do not not have to give up their animals. We also have something sort of unique. I'm not sure which other shelters in the community do this, but we have a protective custody program where if someone truly is struggling and they have nowhere for their pets to go at the moment, we can offer a temporary housing environment for those pets so that they can eventually be reunited with their owners.
Mm-hmm. The causes behind this crisis, what is the biggest one that you are seeing for the shelter where you are doing your work, Alicia?
Housing is a huge issue. There's lack of affordable housing, and then on top of that, you have lack of affordable pet-inclusive housing. Mm-hmm. So that means pet-inclusive, they need to have any breed, any size, and we see people getting threats of eviction constantly because their landlord won't let them keep their pet or they can't afford to stay where they are. So we are just seeing that over and over and over again. So I think that's really the biggest one we're seeing. But the second thing is just the cost of pet care is incredibly expensive. And even with all the resources that we can provide, it can still be too much for pet owners to be able to keep their pet.
Mm-hmm. And if I can piggyback off on that, in St. Louis County, we can't turn down any animal, right? We have to accept every single animal that comes to our door. It's a cat, dog, parrot, guinea pig, rabbit. We've taken a bamboo shark, frogs, snakes. We take it all. So we can't turn down any animal, which adds to our capacity, right? If we're already over capacity and we have to take in a horde. A couple weeks ago, we brought in 32 animals. When our population was just being reduced, it shot up over 200. So we have to bring in everything into our shelter.
Mm-hmm. It's the same at CARE. Mm-hmm. We're contracted with the city, so anything that animal control picks up gets brought to CARE-STL, and we cannot say no to animal control. So they do work with us sometimes doing modified intakes, but...
Yeah, it doesn't always work.
Yeah, right. No, the animals are coming in faster than we can get them out.
Yep.
So.
And a modified intake, what is that?
So modified intake is where, like Alicia said, sometimes the healthy strays have to remain strays for the time being. So they will only bring us emergency cases or animals who have been confiscated or anything that's not a healthy stray living on the street.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And with us, what we try to do is do scheduled out owner surrenders, 4 to 6 weeks. If somebody needs to surrender their animal to us, we'll say, hey, we'll get you on the list to bring it back 4 to 6 weeks. But if they say, hey, I really just can't keep this animal, we can't turn it away.
Right. What are some of the reasons that people give for surrendering, Malik?
And like Alicia said, it's home ownership. Some homeowner insurances won't let you have, especially pit bulls in the house. So
that's the biggest one.
That's one, and pet rent for apartments. Some folks can't afford to pay that extra $50 a month. I just had an individual who dropped off of a dog yesterday at our facility who lost her job. She said she can't put food on the table. She can't afford dog food, and that's something we try to give back to the individual, saying, hey, can we give you a bag of dog food? What can we do to help you keep this dog? But at some cases, they just can't keep the dog at all, so they give it over to us.
Mm-hmm. Leedy Van Cavage is the senior legislative attorney for Best Friends Animal Society. She's actually been a guest on this show before, and
great.
She's calling from Collinsville. Leedy, welcome to St. Louis on the Air.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Sure.
Hi, Leedy.
Hi.
Yeah, go ahead.
Again, housing is the number one reason nationally why dogs are relinquished to animal shelters. For cats, it's the number two reason. So, again, we need to get city councils and county councils to enact something like Roscoe's Law that was just enacted in D.C. this year. Basically, it caps pet security deposits. They can't exceed 15% of a tenant's monthly rent. They cap pet rent at 1% of a tenant's monthly rent, and they prohibit breed, weight, or size restrictions. So, so basically we need to call on the county council, the city council, and all the towns in the Metro East area to enact something similar to Roscoe's Law. Because without it, these dogs are coming into the shelters, overwhelming the shelters. And again, they're wasting not only the lives of these dogs that have homes, but they're also wasting taxpayer dollars. Mm-hmm. So again, Roscoe's Law would be perfect. Luckily in Illinois, we were able to spearhead a bill that prevents insurance companies from discriminating against people because of their breed of dog. We hope that Missouri might consider similar legislation.
Mm-hmm. Leedy, are you aware whether there are municipalities that are doing this?
Again, D.C. is the first one.
Okay.
And we're hoping that it'll be, that all the cities and counties will start looking at this. I know in places in Colorado, there have been talks about something like this also in California. So again, we need to get on the bandwagon and say that, especially if housing providers are getting money from the state. In Illinois, they have the Illinois Affordable Housing Trust Fund, and if you get money from that, you can't discriminate against breeds of dogs. You have to allow one dog or two cats.
Leedy, thank you so much for your call. And we'll be talking about laws and regulations that could help alleviate overcrowding at shelters. And we'll do that after we take a short break. We'll be back shortly to continue this conversation in just a minute. This is St. Louis on the Air on St. Louis Public Radio. Welcome back. Let's return to our conversation about the animal shelters in the St. Louis region who are facing unprecedented levels of demand for services for dogs and cats and some other animals as well, for housing, for feeding, and for veterinary care. Our guests today are Malik Johnson of St. Louis County Animal Care and Control, Elisa Bauer of the Center for Animal Rescue and Enrichment of St. Louis, otherwise known as CARE-STL, and Alicia Vianello of Gateway Pet Guardians in East St. Louis. Before the break, Alicia, you had brought up that veterinary care costs are part of the reason that there is this crisis right now. We heard from Elizabeth, who says it needs to be less expensive to own a pet in terms of vet care. If that happened, there would be less burden on shelters. People are doing the best they can, but when they can't afford to help their injured or sick pets, something is not right. There's a lot of guilt and pressure to do certain things for pets that are cost prohibitive for a lot of people. Even as a responsible pet owner with an income, I've been made to feel that I wasn't doing enough even when I was paying $3,000 for surgeries and yearly vaccine costs between $250 and $400. And to the point, too, about how people are struggling financially, not just with housing, but with food. Zanique says, when I managed a nearby food pantry, I encountered so many folks struggling to care for their pets who would plead for any kind of food they could take to feed their animals. Sometimes they'd take tuna for their cats and the cat food if there was no dog food for their dogs. It was heartbreaking. We'd also like to hear from you. Do you have any questions or comments about the current crisis facing animal shelters? Give us a call at 314-382-8255. That's 314-382-TALK. You can also send us an email at talk@stlpr.org. On the show this week, because of what is happening with SNAP benefits and with shelters, how is it that shelters are dealing with what is now happening with people losing the money that they were relying on to feed themselves, and then the added pressures that come with trying to feed the animal members of their families, their pets? Malik?
I mean, it's almost like the perfect storm. I mean, folks are losing their jobs, given the government shutdown as well. They can't put food on the table, so ultimately they're going to have to surrender their dogs because they can't buy dog food. That's why we tried to do that. Do you need dog food? What services can we provide to you for you to be able to keep this animal? It's just going to happen.
Mm-hmm. Have either of you, Alicia or Elisa, seen the way that pressures around loss of income have been affecting, who's coming with their pets?
Yeah. We actually host an event called Food on the Move out of our parking lot, and it's through the St. Louis Area Food Bank. They bring human food, and we provide pet food. And we just had ours yesterday for the monthly, and we had more people there than we've ever had before. So it was very telling that it was so busy yesterday. So we're doing what we can to partner with those human food pantries. We go to each one every month around our area and give out pet food to make sure that pets are part of the equation, so that way they can get pet food along with their human food. And we're kind of preparing for when people come up and say, like, hey, I don't, like, if I have my SNAP card, I can't afford to buy groceries and pet food right now, we'll be able to hand them a little bit of pet food to get by.
Mm-hmm. Does this mean that either for St. Louis County or with CARE-STL, are you all accepting pet food donations?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
We have a community pantry that is mostly filled by donations from the community. We also have our Pets for Life program. That food is paid for through Humane World. But we definitely have food available for community members, and our pantry is open every day of the week. So.
Mm-hmm.
And that's in St. Louis County. That's where we're asking the public, the community, get to donate dog food to us so we can give it back out to those in need. So we're in the works right now with the Department of Public Health to try to put together a food pantry for humans and also for dogs.
Mm-hmm. With veterinary care specifically, there's another issue that is being faced all around, not just with animal shelters, but in the veterinary health sort of industry, right, Elisa?
Absolutely, yes. And we don't have a clinic that's open to the community. We hope to have one in the future. So it's very hard when people come to us asking for help not to be able to have the ability to help them in our clinic. But like we've said before, there needs to be more affordable vet care available for the community. They need to know where they can go to either get free or discounted pet care. Just any resources that are available for people. We try to point them in the right direction, but we're also limited on knowing where to tell them to go because there's just not a lot out there.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's this misconception that people don't want to spay and neuter their pets. I hear that as a large reason for pet overpopulation. But the truth is there are a lot of places providing low-cost or free spay-neuter, and they're just really backed up right now. I know our wait list is several months long. Most others are. Carroll House Quick Fix Clinic does a really high volume of affordable spay-neuter, and I don't think you can get an appointment right now at all. So I do think that's something that people think that, people just don't want to spay-neuter their pets, but a lot of times they can't afford it at the traditional vet clinic, and everyone who does do it for an affordable price is booked up.
Mm-hmm. And that's what we do in St. Louis County. We've just rolled out a few months ago a free spay and neuter clinic to the community of St. Louis County residents where we spay and neuter 25 to 30 animals for free to the community. And during those spay and neuters, we also provide them with the free vaccines as well. Something we also have in the works is to provide the community with a free vaccine clinic here and there throughout the year because vaccines and spay and neuters get very expensive. Also in St. Louis County, we do provide a voucher to residents of St. Louis County who need reduced cost for spay and neuters that they can take to the local veterinarian clinic.
Mm-hmm. Now, to that point, Carol says spay and neuter procedures should be encouraged with tax breaks, that it might decrease overpopulation. What do you think of that idea? And would local government leaders be open to it?
I don't know. It's a great idea. It's an idea to, allow more dogs in our community, cats and dogs, to be spayed or neutered. That's something that would ultimately have to be left up to our local councils.
And for the community also to speak up to government officials, asking city leaders for more funding to provide more humane, more humane animal welfare funding towards shelters and free clinics.
Several people have suggested that St. Louis and St. Louis County use RAM's settlement money to provide additional support to shelters. Do you know, Malik, whether there have been any talks about using RAM's funding between your department and the county council, Executive Sam Page?
Yeah, I do know a couple months ago, Dr. Sam Page did present to the St. Louis County Council to use RAM settlement funds. I believe the ask was for $20 million to invest in the shelter. It has not been voted on yet by the county council, and the conversation has not continued. So
We have Anna, who is calling from Webster Groves. Anna, welcome to the show.
Good morning or afternoon. I'm a member of the Nextdoor website, and there's a bunch of people on the Nextdoor website that find animals on the street, and the assumption is that they're lost forever. If people whose dogs and cats get out of the yard temporarily and the animal knows the neighborhood and would make its way home within a little while, people are kind of quick to take them to the vet and check for chips and take them to the shelters. And I wonder if that's contributing to the number of animals in the shelters.
Absolutely. People mean well, but sometimes it's a deterrence keeping that animal from getting back home. A lot of animals that do get out do know how to find their way back home. I think it's been implemented in our minds that when you find a stray, you pick them up and you take them to the shelter. And that's not necessarily best practice anymore. So just teaching the community what to do instead of immediately bringing a pet to the shelter is going to take time. But I think that we could get a lot of community members on board with reuniting animals in the field with their owners.
And that goes to the local police departments as well, because we do get a lot of police officers who bring dogs into the shelter because they see it in the neighborhood, and when they pick up the dog, they could just be in their front yard. And they bring it to the shelter, and you're removing them from the community. And if they're not microchipped, it's going to be hard for us to reunite that dog back with the family.
It also makes it a lot harder because since we are contracted with the city ordinance says that if an animal is not spayed or neutered, they have to be spayed or neutered before they can return home. So that causes more time and more money to get the animal back into their home.
So what is the best practice around that? I mean, is there a way to tell if a dog or cat is lost or if they're just kind of walking around?
Yeah, absolutely. You could even, if you have the time, walk the dog around the neighborhood. They might just lead you right back to their home.
Oh, okay.
Posting on sites like Nextdoor, on lost and found pet pages, just giving it a little bit of time before coming to the shelter and doing a little bit of work to help reunite makes all the difference.
Yeah, and one thing we've implemented with our animal control officers is if you find a stray dog in an area, knock on some doors, right? Because the neighbors might know whose dog that is, and they can say, oh, that dog goes across the street. So knock on doors before you just put it in the truck and bring it back to the facility.
There's some statistic, and I can't remember the exact number, but it's like 80% of stray dogs are only 200 feet from home or something like that. And so you can also go to vet clinics and get them scanned for chips without taking them to a shelter. So scanning for chips is always a good idea, but that doesn't mean they have to go into the shelter system.
Yeah, and the police officers who's come into the shelter giving dogs over to us, we've actually given them some microchip scanners and showed them how to use it so that they can do the work on their end and return the dog instead of bringing it to us.
Pet abandonment is something that was brought up by Dave. And this person says that it's a major part of why shelters are overflowing with dogs. Irresponsible people buy or adopt puppies, then tired of them when they become active young adult dogs. The novelty wears off, people lose interest. Dog food and vet bills are expensive. Young owners have kids and don't want to be bothered with their dog anymore, or jobs leave no time to care for pets, so they turn them over to a shelter or just abandon dogs on the street or leave them in vacant former residences. Until people commit to caring for the pets they have for the entire life of the animal, it's hopeless and innocent dogs suffer. How much of that does reflect what you all see, and how much of this maybe has to do with some misconceptions around how animals end up at animal shelters like the ones that you are running? Yeah. Alicia?
I think calling people irresponsible is something that you have to think about. Like, you have to think of people's needs being met. We do see pets abandoned in homes, but generally those homes have been condemned. So if your home's condemned, you have no money, you are just complete out of luck and having to get out of there. Unfortunately, the pet might not be the first top of mind for you. Mm-hmm. So it's really, everything is circumstantial, and you can't group anyone together. So you have to, like, each case is an individual, but a lot of times it's not people being lazy or irresponsible. I don't see a whole lot of I got a puppy and now they're a year old and I don't want them anymore. It's really more, it comes to their lifestyle or their financial situation, or if they need to move, for example, but you really can't lump all that in together.
Mm-hmm. We had Patrick email us saying, I'm concerned with people who make the grandiose act of buying a pet for Christmas. I mean, this is apropos given where we are in the season, and they and their family can't handle. It seems like a bad thing all around for the pet and the kids. The pet is confused. The kids are disappointed. Do you have any information on how bad this is? Like, what really are we looking at in that?
So I can tell you, when I was maybe in junior high, my parents got a puppy that was a family pet, and she lived for 18 years. And it was at Christmas. Like, she came out a little bow from under the tree. There's also studies that have been done. You've seen them by, I think it may have been the Humane World for Animals, but they showed that pets as gifts, people don't love them any less. They actually surveyed people, and it was pretty much the same whether you chose to get the pet or the pet was a gift as how much you love them. So I don't really think that is an issue, and that's not an issue that we see. It's not like we get to February and people are returning their Christmas pets or anything.
Mm-hmm. And people return pets throughout the entire year. It's just not for holidays. It's randomly throughout the entire year.
Mm-hmm. And one thing I do want to bring up is that, Malik, at the St. Louis County shelter, you cannot turn animals away.
You cannot.
People typically don't get ducks and roosters for gifts, but this is also part of what you're dealing with, right?
Mm-hmm. I mean, we get, like you said, ducks, roosters, goats, horses. We've had llamas. We got a bunch of tarantulas one time. I mean, we take them all, and we can't turn them away.
We had an alligator at CARE.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
He's got like a farm going there.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. Well, before we go to a quick break, I mean, we're sitting here together. Each of you, Malik, Alicia, Lisa, are working at these shelters to make sure that the animals are cared for and that staff and volunteers are cared for. Do you have much opportunity to talk with peers about what is going on? And if so, what is the top line?
I mean, I've had the opportunity to go to Gateway and meet with Alicia and talk to her about, operations, as I was new to animal welfare, and she gave me some great ideas. I think we're all suffering at the same intensity with being overcrowded, and it's the time where shelters have to stick together and support each other, right? I'm so grateful for our rescue partners who come to the shelter and rescue animals from us. That does a great deal of work, from the APA, from other shelters. I mean, rescues across the country and out of state. I mean, it truly does help.
For sure. I agree. Collaboration is one of the key components to change in this in the sheltering environment. So having people to talk to that are in the same industry is, even if it's just to brainstorm ideas or to vent, it's very helpful.
Yeah, St. Louis actually has a coalition. It's the Coalition for Pet Progress that I believe all of our organizations are a part of. We meet every month. We get the chance to talk, and there are always topics that we work on. Right now, there's actually a campaign going called The Big Fix, where they're actually putting money into owned pet spay-neuter for cats and medium and large-sized dogs to pay us to do free spay-neuter for them. So that's a really great way that we've all been able to connect, and I'm really glad that Coalition is there.
This is a great point to take that quick break. When we come back, we will continue this conversation and in particular focus on great ideas and solutions for right now as well as the future. This is St. Louis on the Air on St. Louis Public Radio. Welcome back. Let's return to our conversation with Malik Johnson of St. Louis County Animal Care and Control, Elisa Bauer, Development and Marketing Manager at the Center for Animal Rescue and Enrichment of St. Louis, otherwise known as CARE-STL, and Alicia Vianello of Gateway Pet Guardians in East St. Louis. I promised that we would talk about solutions, but before we get to that, there is something that is pertinent to a vote that took place last night. We had some folks reach out to us from St. Louis County, and I want to make sure that we get to a couple of those comments before we proceed. We heard from Nikki, who says St. Louis County Shelter is not supported by the county council. The council doesn't have a clue about how the shelter is operated or what the current population even is. The council wants to cut the budget for the shelter. Nikki adds, volunteers and staff have advocated for years to change ordinances that would help with the animal welfare crisis, but the council can't even be bothered to respond to communication from their constituents. The county council wants to turn the shelter into a pound, which means the only way for animals to leave is via a licensed rescue or euthanasia. We also heard from Sydney, who says the St. Louis County Council is a comedy of errors. More money needs to be spent to hire more animal caretakers at a decent salary. The shelter needs work physically also. If the council members actually went to the shelter to see how employees and volunteers are trying with insufficient resources, they might free up funds, but I doubt it. Animals don't vote. So, to last night, the St. Louis County Council voted 6-1 that it has no confidence in Public Health Director Kanika Cunningham's leadership of the county animal shelter. So, what does this vote, what does it say, Malik?
Well, to go back a bit, cutting the budget will not help at all. I mean, not help our situation, won't help any shelter cutting the budget. So I would hope the council does not cut the animal budget. So, but for the no confidence vote last night, I mean, I'm not too involved in the politics, right? My job is to focus on the shelter and the well-being of the animals in the shelter and the animals in our community. So what goes on at the administrative level between Dr. Cunningham and the council, that's something I'm not involved in. That does not affect our day-to-day operations of the shelter.
Mm-hmm. How much does politics come into play on the east side, Alicia?
So we're in a unique situation that we don't have the government contract, but yet we take in almost all, I think it's like 95+% of the strays and owner surrenders in our area. So we have good relationships with local government. There's just not any contract or funding with it. We are currently working with the city of Cahokia Heights to see how we might be able to partner with them. So we don't have as much political there. We do work with our municipal animal control for our county. They are very underfunded. They only have one animal control officer for the entire county. So that is why we are, as a nonprofit, have to get a lot of donations so that we can help out the area that we're in.
Mm-hmm. Elisa, CARE's relationship with the city is distinct from each of the presentations or the descriptions, that we've heard from Alicia and Malik. How does that relationship with the city make the work that you do go a little bit more smoothly?
So we're kind of a unique shelter where we are a nonprofit that is partnered with the city. So we see both sides. We have independent donations, and then we have city funding. The city, the funding could be better. We feel like they could make more investments in into animal welfare, especially with having more modern facilities. It could be a little bit better, but that doesn't, like Malik said, that doesn't affect our day-to-day operations. So I don't know a whole lot of what goes into deciding our budget for the year. But I would hope that they all have the animals' best interests in mind. Mm-hmm. I know the city officials that we work with, and then the animal control officers that we work with, they do have the best interests of the animals in mind, and they are willing to work with us to help with numbers of our intake, especially after the tornado that happened in May. Our numbers rose significantly after that. That first week, we took in 130 animals that were displaced from the tornado. And since then, we've had a 75% increase. We went from about 200 animals per month to about 350 animals per month. And animal control, like I said, we don't have a choice. We have to take whatever they bring us. But they're also mindful of on like certain weeks, they'll do, like I said before, a modified intake to try to help us. Mm-hmm. So
let's get to solutions. So, sure. Alicia, right now, there's so much going on. There's so many needs across all these different sectors. How is it that you all at Gateway Pet Guardians in East St. Louis, how are you raising the funds that you need, and what has fundraising been like?
We fundraise a lot. It seems like we always have a fundraising campaign going. We try to have a variety of ways we bring in money, so from campaigns to events. We also get grants. So we are in the Accelerator program with PetSmart Charities, and that's to bring accessible and affordable vet care to the United States. So they help fund our public clinic, which is really great, and they're helping us grow the volume for that. So without these grants and donations coming in, there's no way we could provide the low cost and affordable care from pet food to vet care to grooming.
Mm-hmm. Several people have written to us and mentioned breeding, organized breeding operations, some of them that are under the table, as it were. To what extent do you think that legislation or regulation of that would help you all in the situations that you're facing?
I think that would help tremendously if different ordinances or laws are put into place. We've had a few cases where folks would have more than 10 dogs in their house, right? And the county does have an ordinance against having more than 4. And they're breeding those animals, so we would involve the Missouri Department of Agriculture to let them know so they can investigate those situations if somebody is breeding dogs without a license. But we do need more stricter laws or ordinances around folks who breed dogs.
Mm-hmm. G10 from St. Louis called in to ask how they might be able to donate to shelters and what kinds of donations are needed.
Yeah,
Elisa?
Monetary donations are always welcome, but we are always looking for things like blankets and towels and food for our community pantry. All kinds of donations. Pretty much whatever you can think of that you don't need, check with your local shelter because they can probably use it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, any sort of pet supplies. This year there's a program called Presents for Paws in the past that was all over the metro area that provided supplies, toys, crates, all that for shelter pets. That's not happening this year, so that's going to be a big hit for some of us who receive those. And we love that program, and I think it'll come back. But so we're really this year hoping around the holiday season to be able to get some of those donations of toys and treats and all those things for the dogs and cats in our care.
And with us, we don't have the luxury to be able to fundraise, right? We have caps on what we can accept, how much we can accept. For a long time, the donation limit was only $1,000 per person per entity for the entire year. The council just raised it up to $5,000 per person per entity for the entire year. Mm-hmm. So we can't take all of those great $20,000, $40,000 donations if somebody wants to give it to us. We can't do that.
Yeah.
Send them to us.
Yeah.
This is what we're here for. Diana from Maplewood called in, and she wants to know how people can foster animals. And as you're answering this question, and Alicia, I'd like to hear from you, what are the benefits of fostering a pet?
Fostering is really fun and rewarding. So I just fostered a puppy he was emaciated, he was starving to death, and I got to see him over the course of weeks just turn into this thriving puppy. And it's truly like an honor of a lifetime. Like, it's so rewarding and fulfilling. And it's also like this novelty, like you get a new pet in your house and it's fun, and then it's really rewarding to see them get a new home, and then you get another one in. And then it's also, if you're not in a place to have a permanent pet, say you're not going to live here long term or whatever, it's a way to take care of a pet without the financial responsibility and long-term responsibility. So we provide all supplies, all the veterinary care, which I imagine the other rescues do as well. So it's really easy, barrier-free way to have a pet in your life.
Yeah. Is there anything that you want people to come in with as far as information so that, they can be approved to foster a pet?
No, I mean, anyone, you do have to be 18, or if you're younger, you need a parent or guardian with you.
Yes.
But otherwise, we can work with you to find a pet that'll work for you.
Mm-hmm. And what kinds of help do you give to folks who are fostering? Elisa?
Yeah, we provide everything that you need for fostering, from a collar and leash to a crate for them to get acclimated into your home in, food, vaccines, medical care, everything that animal needs. We never want any of the burden to fall onto our fosters financially, so we provide everything. All you need to do is provide space for them.
Mm-hmm. We started this whole conversation today talking about, again, unprecedented levels of overcrowding at shelters because of, owner surrenders, people who are finding animals out in the streets and bringing them to you. And we also touched on staff burnout and the very real situation with compassion fatigue. What message do you have for the staffers and volunteers at your shelter, Malik?
We appreciate you so much. I mean, without our staff and our volunteers, we couldn't operate. I mean, the work is hard. It's very difficult for our kennel workers, for our ACOs, and for our volunteers who come every day to wash dishes, walk dogs, mop the floors. It is very difficult, and I'm so appreciative of every single one of them.
Mm-hmm. Alicia?
Yeah, I think we always say, no matter what happens, our team will get it done. So they're just very gritty and resilient. And it's really kind of a positive environment because it's very problem-solving oriented, and it's just so cool to see the team in action.
Mm-hmm. And then Elisa.
Yeah, it's the same with us. We have a very small staff caring for a large amount of animals, so that looks like a lot of working double shifts and not being able to take time off when you really need it. But it's also just so rewarding for our staff members. Even when you're facing that burnout and you're on the verge of tears, you'll look over and there's a dog just looking at you like you're the most important person in the world. And that just kind of reminds you of why you keep going. And we are fortunate. We have staff that truly, truly loves and cares for our animals and our volunteers. And they take time. Not only are they working an insane amount of hours every week, but they're also attending adoption events on their own time and, promoting these animals in their spare time as well.
Mm-hmm. So, all right. 10 seconds or less. This is a lightning round, not to put pressure on you. What is it that you hope for the future, Alicia?
Oh, gosh. Every pet to have a loving home.
Okay. Malik?
To open a lower cost or reduced veterinarian clinic for the county.
And Elisa?
Yeah, we're working on building a new facility, and that's going to be huge for us. So that's our hope for the future, is to get that facility up and running.
Mm-hmm. Elisa Bauer is Development and Marketing Manager at the Center for Animal Rescue and Enrichment of St. Louis, or CARE-STL. Malik Johnson is Division Director for St. Louis County Animal Care and Control, and Alicia Vianello is Executive Director of Gateway Pet Guardians of East St. Louis. Thank you to each of you for joining us today, and good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us.
This episode was produced by Emily Woodbury.
Audio engineering and podcast design by Aaron Dorr.
Our executive producer is Alex Hoyer.
St. Louis on the Air is a production of St. Louis Public Radio. Understanding starts here.
Do you find yourself regularly listening to episodes of St. Louis on the Air? Suggest us to a friend you think might enjoy our conversations. And leave us a review and rating on Apple Podcasts on the App Store. It's the simplest way to help people discover our show. Thanks.
St. Louis Public Radio is a member-supported service of the University of Missouri St. Louis.